Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back in the video today, and we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans yet again. And I'm surprised that I'm going to actually say this, but we're going to be talking about why the Houston Texans need to extend or re-sign. He's not a free agent, so why the Houston Texans need to extend Laremy Tunsil. And about maybe a month ago, I did make a video on why the Houston Texans needed to trade Laremy Tunsil, and I was very optimistic about how the Texans needed to trade Laremy Tunsil because of how big of his contract was, and now he wants more money, and he wants to become the highest paid left tackle in football. And I said he didn't deserve it, but now I've been thinking, and I think that the Houston Texans need to re-sign Laremy Tunsil. And just thinking about it, with a new quarterback coming in next season, whether that's Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, this Houston Texans team, they need to get Laremy Tunsil locked up for next season, because offensive line is the most important thing for a rookie quarterback coming in. I mean, let's go to Justin Fields and what he struggled with in Chicago. Justin Fields in his first two seasons has struggled massively. I mean, yes, he's been very productive on the run, and he's had a great passing game, but that Bears O-line has been awful. They were even worse O-line than we were last season. But the Texans, they were awful last year with protecting their quarterback, whether it was Kyle Allen or it was Davis Mills. It was awful, and I'm feeling better about it next year, because I think Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud, whoever's the quarterback for the Houston Texans next year, I think they're more mobile than Davis Mills. I think they can move better in the pocket. They can move around more than Davis can if they get in pressure. So I think that's more exciting. I think the Texans O-line is going to be very more interesting than it was this season. I think it starts with one thing, and Laremy Tunsil needs to do better. I think he knows that, especially with a new quarterback coming in. Then you have, what's his name from Texas A&M, Kenyon Green, that we drafted. I think he's going to have a better second year. I really do. I think he had an awful rookie year. And I'm not saying he's going to be a stud, but I think he's going to have a better second year season. I think he's going to be good. I don't know what's going to happen with Titus Howard. I think he's a big problem, and I think ultimately it could get him replaced. And I don't know if Titus Howard's going to come back next season and what the Texans are going to do with him, but I'm starting to think he might be a little bit of a problem. But we'll see what the Texans do with Titus Howard as well. Then moving to what I think the Texans will do with that 12th overall pick. I draft the O-lineman. With a horrible O-line, I mean, if I'm Nick Caserio and I'm drafting a quarterback at 2, whether it's Bryce or it's CJ, and I'm drafting a quarterback at 2, I'm looking with that 12th overall pick. I'm not drafting a wide receiver, which should be one of the choices. I'm drafting an O-lineman, because you can't draft a quarterback with a horrible O-line and not get him some protection. Now, you can obviously do it later in the draft, but I think the best option is to do it in the first round. And you got to do that with that 12th overall pick, unless you're going to, find a way to trade up or something, which I don't think the Texans will do. So you have to draft a O-lineman with that first overall pick. I don't know who that's going to be at all. I think there was someone named Paris Johnson, I believe, and I don't know any other of the guys, but you have to draft an O-lineman to get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud some protection, because you can't get him banged up, because he could get hurt, and so the Texans definitely need to get him some O-line, because I don't want him to end up like I don't want him to end up like Justin Fields or Joe Burrow. I mean, because think about this: in Joe Burrow's first 2 seasons as a Bengal, their O-line was awful. Yes, they've made some great moves going into this season, and they have brought in some guys going into this season for the Bengals. Have brought in some good guys for their O-line this season and have been way better with that. But I mean, Joe Burrow's first 2 years in the NFL and Justin Fields' first 2 years in the NFL, I don't want Bryce Young to have to deal with that. So that's why I think the Texans need to re-sign Laremy Tunsil. That's why I think we need to continue to develop Kenyon Green. And that's why the Texans need to draft another O-lineman in this 2022 draft, and preferably earlier than later. There's no point of drafting a wide receiver with that 12th overall pick. I like Quentin Johnson. I like Jordan Addison. But you got the 33rd overall pick. I draft a wide receiver that is available at that 33rd overall pick. I draft Jalen Hyatt. I love this kid from Tennessee. Had a ball-out game against Alabama earlier this season with 5 touchdowns, had a record. I think he's going to be huge in the NFL, whoever he plays for. I hope it's the Texans because I think he would be very big for the Houston Texans. Very speedy wide receiver, good on the deep threat. I think he would be amazing for the Houston Texans. I think he'd work well with Bryce Young as well. Or C.J. Stroud. I keep saying Bryce Young like he's the for sure quarterback because I just have that much faith. But whoever the quarterback, Bryce Young or Stroud. So, yes, you get him O-line. You get him a good wide receiver in the second round. You bring in his number 1 from Alabama, John Mechie. Now he has 2 good wide receivers. You have Nico Collins as his 3rd wide receiver. And now you're starting to fully develop here as an offense, which was horrible last season. I think this would be a good way to start on the offensive end with good O-line all over the place with Tunsil, whoever you draft, and Kenyon Green. And then, well, not great O-line, but it's better, right? So you have a better O-line, improved O-line as well. You have a returning Dameon Pierce, who was electric for the Texans last year. You have a new quarterback, better quarterback, completes passes, doesn't overthrow stuff, great accuracy, great game manager, just a great quarterback in general. So you have him in. Now you're adding in 2 wide receivers. John Mechie, who's been on the roster, just was not available last season due to his leukemia. Now he is okay, and he's going to be ready next season. He's a stud. He's also a guy who played with Bryce Young. Hopefully Bryce Young would be the quarterback. So he played with Bryce Young in Alabama. 2 guys right there that know each other very well. They worked very well in Alabama. Now you've added in Jalen Hyatt. So you've added in Jalen Hyatt. He's a very good wide receiver. Nico Collins, when he's been healthy, he's not been bad. And that was as a wide receiver 1. Now as a wide receiver 3, I don't think he'd be that bad either, and especially if he's healthy. Now, and there's some other guys in this offense. Like if you bring back Chris Moore, who has been incredible for the Texans on the slot this year, and if you bring him back, now this wide receiver group is starting to look even more dangerous because there were some spurts that he showed last season. He's a dangerous wide receiver for this Texans team. So, yes, the offense still is pretty bad, but from that point where you do those things, the offense looks better. The defense looks better. You have a new head coach. You have a new quarterback. You have 2 new wide receivers. You have a second-year Dameon Pierce. You have a better O-line. You have 3 healthy, good wide receivers. Hopefully you have 2 good tight ends. So the offense looks better. The defense looks even better too. So this Texans team isn't, considered, huge, comeback season, but I definitely think that they would get more wins than they've done in the last 2 seasons. I think that if everything goes right for the Houston Texans and they get some good free agents and spend their money well and spend it smart, I think the Texans could get 5, or I'm thinking right now the Texans are going to get 5 to 7 wins next season. I'm thinking 5 to 7 wins next season for the Texans. I'm leaning towards 6 or 7 for the Texans win-wise. Actually, yeah, probably 6 or 5 probably. That's usually what about a rookie quarterback gets, and if they have future. Usually good rookie quarterbacks kind of struggle in their first season, just getting adjusted and stuff. But, I mean, we'll see. I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this Texans team going into next season. And I think it starts with re-signing Laremy Tunsil. I think he needs to protect the rookie quarterback going into the season. I think he's going to do a hell of a job doing that. So I say re-sign Laremy Tunsil going into the 2023 season. I don't know how much money he's going to take, but let's do it. Screw it. Let's go Texans. Let me know your thoughts on the video, and peace out. And let me know your thoughts on the idea. That's it. And go Texans.